And we tell the community all the time, don't look up these properties on Zillow because the odds of the odds of the seller picking up are very low. So that's why we're talking about quantity. You just need to freaking just get your list out and just hammer the phones. And if someone picks up, great. If they don't, leave a message. Because if you sit there and spend time, oh, how many beds? Oh, it looks really nice. They have wood floors. That's great. And then you dial and then you get a voicemail. You just totally wasted 5 minutes of looking
Yeah.
at this properties. Yeah, super, super important that you get it. Welcome back, everyone. We had a couple of weeks off there. We did some videos of me and Steve with the wicked smart Chris Prefontaine. I am your co-host, Rusty Ham on the West Coast. Steve is on the East Coast. Say hi, Steve.
Hello, Rusty. We are back in a couple weeks.
Back.
Had a wedding. You had a wedding in South Carolina a couple weeks ago. Like you had some stuff going on yourself, but we are back, baby.
Yeah, a little boys trip. Our boys trip last week. What was it? We played golf, darts, we bowled, pool, cornhole. So did a lot of stuff. There's 18 of us. It's pretty cool.
How'd you do in cornhole? What do we care about?
My partner and I won on the last shot. We needed a sink to win it. And
Airmailed it?
Yeah. But it hit one time, one bouncer.
Very cool.
Awesome. Again, the 3 pillars that we hit upon is mindset, skill set, and systems. Today, we're going to talk about systems. Real brief, right? We've done it before. We just want to revisit because I've been using it a lot lately, and it's helped me get a deal, which is a deal that we're going to talk about in our cool down. This is our warm up. So, Steve, I got rid of my VA. I don't know if you knew that or not. I had a VA for a couple of years. And I'm like, why am I having a VA if I'm full time? Right? It wasn't making sense. I was burning money. I had to revisit my business and say, I'm home all day. Why don't I just make the dials? Right now, when I get like a ton of deals on the contract, then I probably should start getting a VA because then I have other things to do. But so I started doing the 3-ring dialer, which is Mojo. I'm sure there's other dials out there. I think you said that you were using one. And what I love about it is obviously it calls 3 sellers at one time, not your single dial. You know, in our community, 50-minute session is going to get you 25, 35 dials. And I think you have a dialer that does more than that. I think you're going to touch on that in a second. This one, in a 50-minute session, I'm doing like 130, almost 100 more dials. And so it's quantity, right? Not necessarily quality, but you are getting the quantity. And so what also it does is when you get to a machine, you don't leave them, you just click voicemail and it leaves a voicemail for them. And then it also, which is cool about Mojo, is sends an email. I don't know if you knew that or not. So it sends an email. And so this is how I got my lead, is the guy emailed me back. Hey, I didn't have to do anything. It was all automated. So pretty cool stuff. That's what I love about it. And then if 2 people pick up at the same time, then there's a voicemail that pretends that you can't hear them. It's cool. It's hello. Yeah. Yeah. So if you and I picked up and I answered your call, then on my end, it would just say, hello. I can't hear you. Let me call you back. That's what it says to the person that's in the line. Yeah. So then what it does is once I talk to you, it redials them. And then if they pick up, I say, oh, can you hear me now? And they're like, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. So it's pretty cool where 2 people pick up exactly the same time. And it does that little outgoing voicemail, which is cool.
Robot.
Yeah. So that's been helping me a lot lately. When I have a deal that I'm going to talk about later that I got that from. What about you? What about your systems and what you're doing with that?
So I use Go High Level. That's a CRM as well. Have you ever heard of Go High Level before?
No, I haven't.
All right. So it's a really good CRM. It's one of those CRMs that like can be very overwhelming to a user if they buy it and have to set it up. When I came along, it was already completely had all of the automations and everything done by super smart engineers. So it was already done. I don't know what it took to make it to be where it is now, but I've never used a tool like this. So it's a single dialer that I use. It's built in. But since it's a part of the CRM, when I want to start dialing and picking a list that I'm dialing from, I go off of all the statuses that everyone's in. So if I have a hot follow-up, that's what I'll do usually first. Hot follow-up would be somebody who I had a full call with. They were committed to that they were going to buy in the next week, but they didn't want to schedule like a date for me to call and follow up because they knew what to do. They just had to put their card in and they would be done. So that's like the people that you want to follow first when you don't have time. What's closest to the money? That's real estate in general, right? Who do you call first? Closest to the money. So I just choose the statuses of where I want to work and I just assign it to me. So I'll start with hot follow-up. And then from there, I can go with what we call ghost churn. Ghost churn means that they haven't bought anything from us in 90 days. They're on the platform, but they haven't bought anything. So they all automatically populate into this group for me to call them and say, hey, listen, I was just curious. I didn't know if you were still in real estate or not, but it looks like I haven't bought any leads in 90 days. I didn't know if that was on purpose or if there's something I could help with, try to get them to spend money again. So it's really cool because once you select whatever the status is of what list you want to call, you literally press play. There's 40 people on the list. Boom, boom. It just goes through them. And then once you're done, it says complete. You go to the next one. And usually my days are really packed with scheduled calls. So like 30-minute scheduled calls, one after another from 9 a.m. to 6 o'clock at night. And then if people don't answer, I have to jump into something else to fill the time, or it could be messages during the day to fill my time. But that is a really awesome tool. And I'm not sure how Mojo works. Can you create lists of a specific version of someone like a CRM would, like a hot or cold follow-up? Can you do that with Mojo?
You can tag it. Yeah. So you can go in and tag it a lead, and then you just go into your hot leads and it gives you that list.
Oh, cool.
But what I do with Mojo is I send it over to my CRM, which is REI Black Book. So what you do is you click a button that says send to REI Black Book, and then it sends all that information into the CRM. Now I can schedule emails, texts, a follow-up call, whatever it may be. So it's cool. You can use Mojo as a CRM. I don't. I just use it as a dialer and then send it over to Blackboard.
It's the Mojo, like you said, and I know there's a couple other ones, but they are considered like a CRM, but realistically, they're very basic, right? They're just so that you can stay organized while using it as a dialer.
Yeah.
These are all super important tools, right? Like it's so funny at the average, like real estate entrepreneur who probably, let's say, is a year old or less, like those are very intimidating tools, right? Because they put you in a position where you have to take action. It's funny, once you get in the groove and you've had a couple phone calls, just like when you're manually dialing, you're fine. You just got to get used to the pace. But everybody needs to be using these dialers because there is no room for you to sit there and look on Zillow and figure out like, oh, what kind of time can I waste right now looking for information that doesn't matter? So I'm supposed to be curious on the phone, not go and have information beforehand. These are like tools that are not only valuable for how you utilize your time, but also holding you wildly accountable. You need stuff like that especially if you're working by yourself. It's very easy to come up with reasons why you don't feel like calling.
Yeah. And we tell the community all the time, don't look up these properties on Zillow because the odds of the seller picking up are very low. So that's why we're talking about quantity. You just need to freaking just get your list out and just hammer the phones. And if someone picks up, great. If they don't, leave a message. Because if you sit there and spend time, oh, how many beds? Oh, it looks really nice. They have wood floors. That's great. And then you dial and then you get a voicemail. You just totally wasted 5 minutes of looking at this properties. Yeah, super, super important that you get a dialer. In our community, we talk about how many dials does it take to get a deal. And it's roughly, if you want to get multiple deals in a year, it's got to be at least 3 to 350 a week. Almost a minimum, right? Some are doing like 20 dials a day. And it's okay, good luck. You're probably maybe looking at 2 or 3 deals a year, which is fine for some people. I guess it'd be fine for me because my area is really high end. I have a deal that we're going to talk about later. It's $1 million home. The payday on that is super high, right? So maybe just me, I can do three deals a year and be fine. If I want to ramp it up and really be fine, then I would do that 3 to 350 per week, almost 4 if I wanted to, right? By myself. That's why you need a three dialer. If you want 400 a week, the dials, because like I said, I can do 130 in one session, and I do that 5 days a week. Can you imagine how many leads I'm getting? So if this,
Well, think too, right? Like it's like 10, what is it like between 10, 15 or 10, 20% of the people that you call pick up?
yep,
So like you're calling 130 people in a session, it's going to be anywhere between 10 to 20 people that like answer, somewhere in that range. A conversation could take 5 to 10 minutes long. It's really like in that situation of calling that many people and talking to people live, you're looking at, I don't know, probably an hour and a half on the phone. Sometimes you do get sucked into long conversations, especially if you land someone interesting. It's okay to
right,
spend a little more time with somebody who's actually has an issue that you can solve, right? That's the whole point of this,
yeah,
is to land people that you can help, and the volume helps you have a higher chance of landing those people. And I know you said like when it comes to looking at how many leads does it take to close a deal, there's so many different versions of important KPIs. And I know everybody looks at that differently. What I look at in the marketing side, which computes and makes sense to the people that I talk to, but like it's cost per deal. That's the big thing, because with marketing has all different levels of expense, right? You can have really cheap marketing and it could cost you the same as if you do the expensive marketing, but it's a timeline connected,
yeah,
right? Like we're doing like cold calling lists. It could take you $1,200 to get your first deal, but that may take you 3 months. If you're doing like expensive marketing, Google advertising or pay per lead, it could cost you $1,500 in 3 days. But like a lot of the times it ends up working out the same. So cost per deal is a very valuable one. And what they do is they go, all right, what's my cost per deal? How many leads does it take for me to get a contract? It usually takes me every 13 leads, I get a contract with that kind of marketing. Okay. So how many takens on the contract does it take for you to sell? Because that's a whole new thing, right?
yeah. Because you have to. No,
That's the important one. Like
that's
how,
that's the money
how,
is inputting you're taking.
how confident you in having the ability to disposition a property? Do you have buyers list? What's your process of selling it? Where do you have any people that you can JV with if you don't have luck in the first 30 days? That's a big piece, is like having a couple of avenues and not just doing the same thing over and over again. There's people out there that are like really good at doing stuff like that. It's just, in other words, finding them and then coming up with whatever your JV like agreement is together of, I'll find the deal, you disposition. Is it 50-50, 60-40, whatever it is. But the realistic side, and I can tell you this from looking in hindsight, which obviously is easy to do, but I was so stubborn in the beginning when I was getting houses under contract. I was getting them one after another for a while. I had 20 in a year once, and I think I sold like 3 of them. And it was a mix between getting houses under contract, trying to do it in volume and not really getting the best deal, overpaying. So nobody wanted them. Also, I was stubborn, so I wasn't dropping my price because I was counting money that didn't exist. Also, I wasn't going back to the seller and I wasn't renegotiating to get money off like after 30 days. Also, I wasn't giving them an expectation before I got out of the contract that if I didn't have any kind of traction, like within 3 weeks or so, we'll just see if it's worth lowering it a little bit and see if we get more traction. These are all pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. Like when you're getting traction, you're like, oh, if I drop at 10,000, I make 10,000 less. What's half of zero?
Nothing.
So I think that the big piece is like maturity in real estate as well. It's, do you want to get traction? Like whether you make 20,000 up front or 7,000 up front, it's something that you can use as another like building piece. And that was probably my biggest problem in the beginning, was I was so greedy with money I didn't make because I was so excited that I was about to create revenue from something I didn't even know how to do that. And I was stuck in my ways.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's pivot. Speaking of dialing and trying to get deals under contract, let's pivot to, now we usually have a game plan. One of those game plans is one of 4. You have your lease purchase, you have your owner financing, which you're going to talk about your owner financing deal later. You have buying a house subject to the existing mortgage. where the mortgage stays in the seller's name and you take title. And there's a couple reasons why someone would do that. And then you have the sign out or executive lease purchase, which is we find a buyer, get the non-refundable down payment. We split a portion of that with the seller, and then we assign that buyer to the seller. Now the seller is responsible for closing them out, right? And what we're doing right now is we're ramping it up. And what do I mean by that? In the community, most of the people in the community are up in your area, the East Coast, the northern part. And we tend to, in the community, do better when realtors go into hibernation, right? Because it seems, I think the Northeast right now is nice, right? I think it's actually, the weather's pretty good, but it's going to turn nasty fairly soon, right?
Cold. Oh yeah, but it's cold.
Yeah. So talk about that, since you live it. I don't. Southern California realtors, they're always alive and well and doing things in the SoCal, because it may rain once and it might dip below 75 one time during the winter. Yeah. Talk about the Northeast or just cold areas in general. And how does that help like people like us?
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day, right? The realtors turn into Puxatony Phil and they don't come out of their hole till spring. Yeah. And we show up and they get all the business. It's just, it has to do, Russell, with how people are programmed who don't know real estate, right? They're just an everyday person. And traditionally how they're programmed is if you want to sell your house, you either hire a realtor or maybe you have an attorney that'll take care of it. You'll try for sale by owner. Like those are the two ways that people are programmed to sell real estate. So with the Northeast and there's cold weather, like when it starts like snowing and it gets really, excuse my language, shitty out, no one wants to show houses in the winter. No one wants to leave their house. They don't want to have to shovel their driveways so that people can come into their home. They don't want them tracking all sorts of stuff and having to clean their house after everyone leaves in the winter. Like there's not a great market for open houses and stuff in the winter. So realistically, realtors sprint for like late winter so that the early spring they have coming soons, and then they rotate to the end of the summer and fall comes and I don't know what they do. I don't know if maybe they go into a cave in the Northeast. I don't know if there's like an underground hotel that they all go into and they just come up with a master plan for the spring. But there isn't a whole lot. You're not going to see a whole lot of listings. So the reason why we're talking about this is because what we've seen in the community and our own businesses. Russell, you're in San Diego. You don't deal with this. I'm sure that the realtors probably are cooking all year round. But here, usually in the community and in my business, like November historically has been my best month in real estate every single year. My most takens have always been in November, and then all my solds are like 90 days afterwards. They're always at the like March, end of February area, just because people don't have options at that time, but they could still have problems. And they're told by realtors, oh, just hang on, wait till March, wait till February, we'll get it on the market. But financial disrepair happens. You don't have time to wait if you can't afford your house, or you don't have time to wait if you have certain situations that are coming up. So we seem to do a lot of deals in the Northeast or just any areas that have any kind of winter with creative real estate, just because the natural progression of realtors aren't out there marketing and they're not like, it just seems like that's a natural progression.
Yeah. Our main script is, okay, when is the better time to sell your home? When there's less competition or there's more, right? So if you're in the Northeast and it's snowing, and you're like, oh, and we're getting conversations, and I listen to phone calls and I critique them. And the sellers are up in the Northeast. Oh, I'm just going to take it off and we're just going to put it back in the spring. The script is, okay, you put it back in the spring. So is everyone else, which means there's going to be less competition, or there's going to be more competition. There's going to be more houses up for sale. You're not going to get the price you want. How about this? How about we pay you the price that you want now, and then you can be done with it, right? Now, the issue is, okay, if they need a place to go, then they're having that same issue. There's no houses for sale in that area, unless they're going to Florida. Most of the Northeasterners are starting to venture down to the Florida area. I talked to a seller for an associate yesterday. They are already in Florida and they're selling in mass. And I describe what an AO is, and they don't need to be landlords, and they can make this much money. And they're like, oh, that sounds great. So now if they're looking to buy again in that same area, obviously there's probably not going to be a whole lot of inventory for them to move into. So that's why when we ask the sellers, do you have a place to go already? And if they do, if they have already bought in somewhere else, great. This can be a perfect situation for you. We can take over your property, get you out underneath it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And then you get the price that you want. And you don't have to deal with commissions, fees, all that kind of crap. However, if they do need to move, or if they need to sell this house in order to buy something else, it's probably enough of work, right? Because the inventory is going to be low, and then we might not find a buyer. Yeah. So that, I mean, it's perfect timing for us, right? Especially for creative ways. When realtors go into hibernation, it's like, hey, we can do this as long as you're willing to wait. Right. That's the caveat. All right. Speaking of the game plans, you have some great news. I'll talk about my deal. Mine's going to be hopefully a sign out, $1 million home. He's Airbnb-ing it, which is perfect because he doesn't need the money. He can just short-term rental it every once in a while and still keep his cash flow, and he's not coming out of pocket. I can find a rent-to-own buyer for him, split the down payment with him, and in 2 years he'll be cashed out. He used to be a rent-to-own himself. He rent-to-owned a home himself, so he understands the situation and how it works. So that's coming up on the horizon. Go ahead.
Is this right near you?
Yeah, it's just right over the hill, about 30 minutes from me. Pretty cool.
How'd you find this, the My Plus leads?
Yeah, I was in that Mojo, right? So I called, I did a dialing session. I emailed him. He emailed me back. Hey, give me a call. This looks like something I want to do. He's done real estate investing in the past. He says he's done over 30 transactions, different ways, and he has hard money loans that he does. He has a hard money loan on this one that he needs to pay the guy off, but he said he can call the guy back and say, hey, can you give me a couple of years? And the guy said it would be okay. So this might be a good situation for him. Yeah. And it's no money out of your pocket, right? You can let me advertise it to the rental market. If I don't find anybody, then you can just continue Airbnb it. He's not hurting,
Right.
He does have a high loan. He does have a high mortgage on it, but with the Airbnb, he's fine.
That house must be, if it's an Airbnb, it must be nice. I assume that it's like a very presentable house.
Yeah, it's near a winery, and they have a bunch of weddings at these wineries. It's a place where people, if they're coming to these weddings, that you can just rent them out to for the weekend or something.
Is what he's asking, say, from you when you is agree on a price, is there still plenty of room for you to sell it?
Yeah, because he's dropped the price a few times. He says his girlfriend is actually the realtor. And so I'm like, oh, how's that working? And he's ended on the market forever. They've dropped the price a little bit. So I'm like, hey, how about we do this? We buy it at this price. I sell it at the price that you have it on the market for now. So and we can co-market actually, because he has it on the market at $920. I can sell it at $920 for my rental. It's not gonna freak buyers out. Hey, why is it this amount for rent to own, but it's this amount with the realtor? So we're gonna co-market it. So am I super enthused that we're co-marketing? No, but a deal is a deal, right? So that's called the lease purchase executive lease purchase. I'm going to sign the buyer back to him, and I'm going to take my cut and get the heck out of there, which is nice sometimes. Talk about your deal, Steve. This is an owner financing deal that you found for the Wicked Smart company.
Mm-hmm.
You moving into it, right? So describe yours and what's the final on that?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier episode of how I got this owner financing house under contract. We had trouble selling it for 6 months or something like that, but we committed to the deal because it was some low payments. I think our cost of that deal was like $732 a month, everything. It was a very low cost because I got like a 2.6% interest rate or something we ended up agreeing on. So imagine that. Imagine getting that now, Russell. Exactly. So like I mentioned, the other ones, I ended up having a life change. I got divorced. I was looking for houses. The market boomed. So all the I couldn't get a loan because of I was self-employed and I needed a couple more years of tax returns because all my businesses were owned 50-50 with my ex-wife. So we were able to transition them over, but they still now need, with that 50% ownership, 2 more years. This is like starting from scratch, essentially.
Correct.
Then I was looking for rentals, and the rental market was through the roof. It was so expensive. Like, and plus everything was like 90 days out and I needed to go. I'm like, I have this house here. It's gross. I need to go and redo everything if I'm going to live in it. Because it was a rental for 20 years. When I say gross, it was ugly. It wasn't gross. It was just ugly. So I ended up deciding to buy that house. I moved in, I redid everything, made it look nice, all that stuff. And then I actually it's under contract now, closing December 17th. I bought a house with my girlfriend, Jill. We close on December 2nd. And the way that deal looked, just really quick math wise, when I bought it from that seller, I got under contract for $219,000 in 2021. We structured, like I said, a 2 point, whatever. What did I say it was again? I've already forgot.
5, something like that.
Yeah.
Very
Very low interest rate with them. We did a 40-year amortization schedule to get the payment down low to where we needed it to be, which obviously makes him more interest, but the difference in interest and principal, because the house was cheap, it really wasn't more than $50 for whatever. We ended up getting that house under contract. And then when I moved in and now I'm selling it now, I think we sold it for $305 with the work I put in. I probably put $25,000 into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a good deal for how much it paid in returns. It was a good little time in my life there with my kids. I'm on a pond there. We had a lot of fishing. We had our own dock and stuff like that. And I was just proves you, like, I only had that house 2 years, and the profit overall is whatever it is, $70,000+. But that's what happens with constructing these deals, right? We got this property under contract at the beginning of the boom before that the house was worth a lot. Fast forward 2 years, 2.5 years later, and the market has plateaued, but it's still climbing a little bit.
Right.
And threw 20,000 into it, and it created like an additional 50,000 profit. So real estate's very interesting, right? That guy, when he sold me that house, which that house was a lot of problems, I'll be honest, he didn't do anything to it in the 20 years that he had rental. He just put one family after one family. He probably never cleaned, never painted the walls. But that house was going to be very difficult for that guy to sell. And we paid more than anyone else, without a doubt. Nobody wanted that house for $219. It probably, if he sold it on the market, which he would have got crushed if he did like a as is sale, because there was so many things wrong with it. It was like that house was like pieced together, like Legos, like one of those. Everything's added onto everywhere. Yeah, and he would have not made anywhere near what he would have made if he did when he worked with us. And he didn't have to worry about anything. He got his payments every single month. He got his $732 a month, and didn't have to worry about anything on the house. And now he's getting cashed out 2.5 years later, and walks away with whatever principal pay down he ends up getting. I don't remember what it is in the calendar, but he probably.
Do you think he's upset that he's getting cashed out, or is it something like, oh, thank God?
No, and unfortunately, I learned the hard way I should have got more properties off him. When I first got him under contract, he had 5 other houses that were rentals. And I was like, let me just make a couple payments to him, and I'll reach out to him, and I'll see if he wants to do any more business. I reach out to him in 6 months. He goes, I just sold all 4 of them. I think we're going to roll those from, but no, it was just a very short, small deal. It was a 5-year balloon payment. We'll have paid it off in under 3. He'll have made money. We'll all have made money. And we move on to the next one.
Right. I don't know if you heard that, but the phone call came in. I have to get going here, buddy. But it was great seeing you. Congrats on the home. Congrats on getting that profit, getting underneath it and getting out of it. And I will see you next week, buddy.
All right, Russell. Good seeing you, brother.
Later.
Right.